live every Tuesday at 7 with Steve, Cat, Ryan, Amanda, and Eric. And the voice of NEW, Vince Perry. Hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT, handing out SmackDowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here, no safe space. Now listen in, time to hear from some of the greats.
Oh, you gotta stop moving the phone.
She's back.
Thank God. Just all is right in the world. She's back.
Oh gosh. Is that all it takes?
Mrs. Cabrera.
Yes, the new Mrs. Cabrera. Lexi Cabrera. Welcome to the War Report, everybody.
It was a nice quick return, too. I think she was only in the ring for about 3 minutes.
Yeah, of course. But we'll get into all of that. The Alexa Bliss return. Talking about the character that she came in with or didn't come in with or whatever. But all of that today on the War Report, brought to you by Tag Me a Date. Hope everybody's doing well. We got wrestling to talk. Let's get into it. I'm Vince. That's Steve. Eric is down there on the bottom as well. And we'll be with you for the next hour-ish, talking all things pro wrestling. Bottom of the screen right now, if you're watching the live stream, has our current topic, which is this past Sunday. Oh, no.
I have to start with something quickly.
I thought we were talking about the old pay-per-view that happened on Sunday. We're talking about the next one, Money in the Bank. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, no, fuck. We're going to talk about the promo that aired during WrestleMania Backlash with Cody Rhodes. And if you paid attention to it, it sounds like they're changing what happens if you win said money in the briefcase. So usually if you win the bank, you get to cash in at any time, anywhere, whatever you want to do for a world title. Actually, any belt, really, but obviously you're going to go for the world strap, right? So now, from the promo, it sounds like that is now going to be you main event WrestleMania, which... Don't we have the fucking Royal Rumble for that?
Right. Yeah.
So does that mean now that the Royal Rumble means fucking nothing?
Well, no, because we have two. Once Roman Reigns loses one of them, we're going to have two world titles again. So you have one winner. The Money in the Bank winner challenges one champion from Raw or SmackDown, and then the Royal Rumble winner chooses the other person, I guess.
Well, then now that's another thing we got to talk about,
or
right?
Because it could be a triple threat. I don't fucking know.
The big talk right now is this promo that Roman cut at this house show, basically saying like he's leaving, kind of thing. Which, listen, he's obviously not fucking leaving. He's the champion of both shows. Okay, he just signed a new extensive contract.
But it's
however,
a weird thing to say at a house show.
You know, I was talking with a friend, and it makes sense. I think what he was trying to say without saying, you're not going to see him at house shows anymore.
Right.
Like he's going to be like back in the day, you didn't really see Hulk Hogan until it was a pay-per-view or a Saturday night's main event. You didn't see the title defended unless people paid to see it. You know what I mean?
House shows were a bigger deal back then because you did see like they had. So in the 80s, there was an A and a B roster, and the A roster would always have Hogan on top, and the B roster would have Savage or Piper or Warrior or somebody like that who was the next top guy, but not quite the top guy. So they would have two separate rosters running house shows, and the A ones would go to like big cities, New York, Boston, et cetera, et cetera. And the guarantee was at a house show, because, again, the business has changed so much in the last 40 years. House show television was used to promote the next house show gig. Hey, you see all these guys on TV, you saw them for an hour. Guess what? They're coming to Topeka, Kansas. You can come watch them. So that's like, this is the way the business has changed. House shows were the bread and butter. Now that the house shows are an afterthought, house shows don't count None of it that happens on a house show ever makes it to TV unless they specifically bring a camera crew. House shows now, unfortunately, don't really mean anything in terms of what's going on television. They're just they're kind of it's an exhibition. The guys that go out there, guys and girls that go out there and wrestle, kind of have a lighter time, an easier time. They mess around with the crowd a little bit more. It's a little, it's a little different. Hey Tara, thanks for joining us today. But yeah, it's a completely different business now. And the house show thing is, unfortunately, there is, some people can only afford to go to a house show.
Well, listen, especially now, I mean, listen, even if you're just comparing it to WrestleMania, now it's 2 fucking nights and it's, it's NXT and it's fucking this and that and it's the other. And
house show, like, think about a house show. Now he's the only world champion. So if you're announcing that Roman, if all of a sudden Roman Reigns stops doing house shows, the main event is Austin Theory, whoever the Intercontinental Champion is, God forbid Cody Rhodes is the main event. Like, you know what I mean? I just don't. Unless you're not going to do house shows anymore, you're going to do such a limited number that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's so hard to figure out where this is all going to go. But
there was a rumor.
Yeah, go ahead.
An addition to the house show thing was that part of this contract for Roman was that he was going to have an easier schedule. And there's been a rumor that he's going to take 9 or 10 weeks off, which might be the 9 or 10 weeks between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. But we don't know. That's, again, it's an unconfirmed rumor that he's going to take that much time.
So how do you get the strap off him then?
With Money in the Bank being a main event at WrestleMania now, you do, they're thinking, people online, again, this is all speculation. We don't know any of it's true. People online are saying that Roman Reigns shouldn't drop whatever the universe, whatever one he's held for however long. The one that he just won at WrestleMania, he should drop to Drew before or at the United Kingdom shows because he's Scottish.
Are we good with McIntyre getting another run?
I'm sure, but McIntyre, since he lost that title a year or two ago, has lost so much shine and so much mystique behind him. He's just another guy, and that's their problem. Everybody on the roster, aside from Roman, is just another guy. Like, Seth is not even, like, right now, if you asked me, could Goofy, this is the Seth Rollins that pulled off what they call the heist of the century, interrupted the WrestleMania main event, won it, and won the world championship. And then immediately, like, flash forward a couple years later, and he's cowering in fear in the corner in between the turnbuckles as the Fiend comes out. They've messed around with this Rollins character so much that, like, this Cruella de Vil, I wear goofy sport coats thing, that's not a main event gimmick. And he's one of the only other big name guys that's been there forever and is considered a main eventer. He's not at main event caliber right now and he could face Roman Reigns in a main event, I guess, but you already know the outcome because regardless, like, Seth will lose and then he'll just come out next week cackling and wearing another tacky suit.
They're setting this up. We're getting a third and final Cody Rollins match.
But you're saying third and final. They're going to drag this shit out. I mean, come on.
No, I think it ends at Hell in the Cell.
Why even bother? I mean, like,
Cody won 2 matches already.
Because Seth Rollins will whine and cry like a little bitch.
But if you do, like, here's the thing: it's usually, and again, this is the wrestling is an extension of sports. It's supposed to be related. You are using the guise of a sporting event to create a dramatic show. This happens all the time. If this was Friday Night Lights, and that little whatever Denton, Texas team, or whatever it is, was facing their crosstown rivals, what would have happened was they lose the first one or they win the first, let's say they win the first one, then the bad
you couldn't do that with Cody. You couldn't bring Cody back and have him lose already.
Well, yeah, but then why have 3 matches in a row? He's already proved he
maybe
beat
just
the guy once clean, beat him once dirty, so Seth gets his win back in the 3rd match after anybody.
Oh, no, I didn't see all that. I think Cody wins the 3rd match, too, to be honest with you.
But then what does that do for Seth? Seth has been there for a fucking decade and a half.
All it does is show that Rollins can put on a great match. I mean, the thing is, him and Cody will put on another great match, especially if it is a Hell in the Cell match, That's how I'm seeing
so.
it.
It's just I don't know where.
I'm not saying I don't agree with you. I'm
Right.
just saying.
Well, the funny thing is, all these WWE people are like treating Cody like this breath of fresh air, and anybody that's watched AEW the last 3 years is like, just wait. It's cute now. It's cute for the first 6 months, and then you realize, oh, he's never turning heel. Oh, this is the character. There's no depth to it. There's no variation on it. Cody has found these tights, this music, that jacket, that hair, that tattoo. That's it. That's what you're getting. That's what you got in AEW from Cody for the last 2 years. That's what you're going to get in WWE. It feels like a fresh coat of paint because he's somewhere else. But you're eventually, the Cody problem is going to rear its head again. Oh, rumor. What if Vince wants Cody to turn heel? Cody said he would never let Tony Khan turn him heel, and he would never turn heel in AEW. So does he just, suck it up and change because Vince wants him to be heel? Or does he say, oh, no, Vince, I told the fans 5 years ago I would never turn heel. I'm just going to be me. And whether you want to cheer me or boo me, and he's going to go, you're not that big of a star, pal. You know what I mean? Like, who are you to, like, at this point, the WWE fans think this version of Cody's fresh. AEW fans have seen it for a while. Once WWE fans see this and they're waiting for the next step, that's what AEW fans have been waiting for the last 2 years, because there was always this, oh, Cody's going to turn heel. Oh, him and Brandy are going to turn heel. Oh, this thing is going to happen with it. And none of this shit ever happened. So now we're in this situation where Cody is a de facto main eventer in WWE because he came over only because he came over from AEW. If he had been on that roster for the last 5 or 6 years, he'd still be fucking Stardust, and he knows it. So like, and again, I've said this every week. Cody is the day Cody beats Roman Reigns, the day everybody realizes wrestling is fake, because like, it just doesn't make sense at this point.
The only way it makes sense is if it's after a grueling match and he cashes in.
Money in the Bank cash in.
You know what I mean? Then okay. But it doesn't sound like that's even what you get if you win the fucking thing now.
Here's what other people have said, though. They've said, oh, Cody just phrased it weird, and that the Money in the Bank is the same as it ever was, but that Cody was implying that if he wins, he's going to save the briefcase until WrestleMania.
I hope that's true.
But then what do you like? So if he wins, so let's work that out. Cody wins the Money in the Bank and says, I'm not cashing in until WrestleMania. He holds on to the briefcase. We are at WrestleMania. That means this idea of Roman Reigns holding the title for 2 years straight so he could face The Rock when The Rock is finally available for the WrestleMania isn't happening.
No, they'll figure out a way to make it work. Because that will always take precedence, in my opinion.
Well, right, but that's the But how many years can we run on this assumption? Oh yeah, The Rock's going to be back. The timing just needs to be right. So
listen, we always say timing has to be right. Now we're going to be in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
that is a little different.
It gives us a more of a glimmer of hope that it is a strong possibility that it's going to happen this year at Mania.
Right. So then, what is Cody talking about? What's he talking about? Going to WrestleMania with the Money in the Bank briefcase? It don't make no sense. Could have been just
a mistake.
Or it could be a triple threat, or
right. I feel again. I think the people I've seen online saying Cody was throwing that in there as his own stipulation. I'm leaning towards that. That's man. I have containers and pipes if you need them, all with my brand on them. Anyway, Tara, I want to pull back Tara's comment. Hold on a second. I'm gonna pull this up for her. Talking about house shows. I used to love house shows when I was a kid and watch the house shows at the MSG network with my brothers. House shows, like I said, were a big part of the business back in the day. They're not, they're just not as important right now, unfortunately. I loved going to house shows too. They're fun. Let's see. Next one. Is Rock Roman definitely happening? We don't. That's the problem. We don't know. We thought it was happening at this WrestleMania. We thought it was happening.
Listen, there's a possibility that they know. There's a possibility that Vince and Rock have had a conversation that it is, but we don't know. That's not anything that's been made public.
Right. The only people that know right now what's happening are Roman, Rock, and Vince, and maybe Bruce Pritchard. Nobody else really knows for sure.
What we do know is that Roman's going to go over.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. No, because first of all, the Rock came back at that Royal Rumble when Roman won a couple of years ago, when everybody booed. He came in specifically to try and help get his cousin over. The Rock wrote a line into the young Rock about his young cousin Joe challenging him to a match at WrestleMania that just aired a couple weeks ago.
Right.
This is the breadcrumbs are there, and the conclusion. The Rock, knowing The Rock's a businessman. The Rock understands that the draw is not necessarily him winning at WrestleMania. It's him appearing and wrestling. Because the same thing with Stone Cold. Stone Cold's going to come back and have a match. Big deal. The Rock comes back and have a match for the first time since 2009 or whatever. Big old deal. So that's the deal. That's what gets people in the door. And then the finish is the finish. You know, it's the same spear 'em, stack 'em, pin 'em thing that's been going on.
The only person that makes sense that, and it's not happening, or at least not for quite a while, to be looked at as a legitimate threat to beat Roman Reigns would be someone like fucking CM Punk at this point, you know?
Or the dark horse for all this that sometimes we forget because he's on a bad TV show is Braun Breaker.
Oh, right. Definitely.
That guy, if he's doing fine right now, if he's ready in 8 months or by the time the Rumble comes up, Vince could pull the trigger on him. If he's not ready this year, he could be ready next year. He, as far as I'm concerned, Braun Breaker is waiting in the wings.
As far as currently on the roster, the three rosters.
Yeah, I think out of anybody that they have trained right now that they haven't released, he's their next guy.
I mean, it makes sense. The guy's a beast.
He is, but it's also like it's kind of interesting that all of this talk has come up about Roman Reigns all of a sudden this last week because of the comments at the house show and all that, where a good portion of his feud against Brock Lesnar was Roman talking about Brock being part-time and not always being there and not defending his title. And then, it's cool. Like even John Cena did the same thing. Oh, Brock's never here. Brock never defends his title. Brock only shows up at pay-per-views, blah, blah, blah. And then guess what? John Cena started getting a little older and wanted to make a little more money and do a lot less appearances. And that started happening. And now Joe Anoa'i's getting a little bit older, a little bit more savvy. He's like, wait a minute, I can make more money working less dates. Like nobody does the math on this Brock Lesnar thing. He makes millions of dollars every match. He makes tens of thousands of dollars every second that he's in the ring. He's a very good business person. And it's not listen, if that's your intent is to, get your bag and retire by 40 or whatever it is, fucking do it. But it's also really weird timing when you're in the middle of the biggest run of your life to start giving these speeches like you're packing it up or you're slowing down, or it's like, just don't even say it. Just be like one day, just be like, you know what, guys, I started a new contract. Don't say it at a house show and talk in riddles. Just like have your publicist put out a tweet, be like, hey, I did my new contract. It is for lesser dates, but I'm still going to be present. I love my WWE universe. I'm the head of the table. You'll still be able to acknowledge me because my contract lasts until 2027 or something. Like something nice like that. Instead, they leave it to speculation and rumor and all of this stuff, partially to generate buzz online, but also like, I guess you don't want your contract details public, but it's just a weird thing. Like I said, in the middle of this is the hottest Roman Reigns has ever been. He's been in a bunch of WrestleMania main events. He's been pushed to the top guy, and there was always pushback. And now is finally the time. And right in the smack dab middle of it, he goes, hey, you might not see me around much longer. It's a weird thing to do.
I mean, it could also be shtick too.
It could be like, let's just, okay. If the guy needs time off and he just goes, hey,
he has been working like a workhorse.
But you could come out and say, Paul Heyman, because he's my business manager, put together this shady deal and I've got 2 months off. Bye. or be like, there's no other challengers. I've beaten everybody. Everybody else has to accumulate more wins before they can
That's
even think
kind of
about
true,
challenging
though.
for the world title. And it's true. The problem, it's not a problem. It is a problem if they don't address it. If they address it, it's a truth that nobody is at his level and they need to accumulate more wins before they can become credible. If he used that as his justification, you could have almost no argument as to why the guy's not on TV. Like, they could do vignettes of him sitting on the beach in fucking Samoa, wherever the fuck Samoa is. And you know what I mean? Like, sipping on a pineapple drink or a thing in a coconut, and like, your tribal chief is taking a little vacation, and like, just like, he's on TV because they showed a vignette, but he's not there because he wanted to take a couple weeks off.
Bahamas, acknowledge me.
Yes, there you go. Like, he could be in a different island. Like, he could be in Fiji, and he'd be like, people of Fiji acknowledge me. And then he's on a different island the next week. He's like, the people of Oahu acknowledge me. Like, great. Go on your Lex Luger acknowledge me tour of the islands. That would be fucking cool. But like, don't just
The Roman Express.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like they could get the Vince's private jet, and instead of the WWE logo, it's all the Samoan stuff on the side of it, and fly him around. So yeah, Tara, just to let you know, he gave a speech at a house show that's saying he might not come back to this venue or be around this place much longer. Sounded like a retirement speech. Turns out that it means his new deal includes working less house shows or no house shows in exchange for, he'll be making TV appearances, but he won't be making the house show loops because he's a main eventer and he's decided that is not something he wants to do anymore. So that's where we're at. We don't know anything for certain. We just know what we've been told and what we're speculating on. There's been no confirmation really. WWE confirmed to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com that Roman is still factored into WWE's plans for the near future and all that typical corporate jargon, but they don't speak directly on contracts, and they haven't spoken directly on his contract. We're just kind of going on all the rumors. It's very odd. Like I was blown away because like I'm just like, what do you do? Like what if Hogan in like 1986 came out and said, "Let me tell you something, brother. You might not see me around Tampa anymore, man. I'm gonna go work less dates." And they'd be like, "What the fuck, Hogan? You just killed our house show business." It's just it's so weird to hear your main event top guy, the champion with 2 belts, go, "Hey, I'm gonna slow down a little bit."
Or maybe that was intentional to fuel speculation.
And if it is, that's great, because then it's like, oh, he's not going to work this pay-per-view or whatever. Will Roman
look, they didn't have him defend the title at this past pay-per-view.
There was on the main. There are two other. I say there are 2 belts because there are 2 belts, but there's really only one championship right now. That championship wasn't defended for the men, and only one of the women's world championships was defended. I understand. Oh, Vince, it's a TV show. Titles are meaningless and all that. Well, here's the problem. If everything is meaningless because it's a fictional TV show, then nothing matters. Then why bother putting on a TV show? Something has to matter and have stakes within the universe
we gotta have
of the
some
show.
Kayfabe,
Right. And like Becky, I like Becky's comment. I very rarely like the things that Becky tweets because I just think I don't know. It's this weird worky shooty kind of, I'm on Twitter, but I'm working you, but it's my account and my name is Rebecca Quinn. I don't know. Whatever the fuck. She said, "Oh, when I was champ, I defended my title on every pay-per-view." And then Bianca said something back to her. And Becky's comment back to Bianca was, "Oh, I was talking about Roman, not you." But it's true. Neither of those world titles were defended on the show.
But to be fair, that's, even in kayfabe or not, that's not Bianca's decision to book herself for the pay-per-view,
Right, yeah. And it's all just to build heat. Like, Becky's just saying that stuff to build heat for herself and stay relevant, because now it looks like her and Asuka are going to feud over the opportunity to feud with Bianca. I assume Asuka wins because I think the story is that Becky has to go and lose and get humbled a few times by people to become the Becky Lynch that everybody knows and loves again, and eventually turn back babyface. Has she realized yet that her turning heel fucking killed WWE's women's division for like a fucking year and like tanked her own merch number, like exactly what happened to Stone Cold when he turned heel in the middle of his hottest run. Like that time, like the 2 or 3 times Seth Rollins came back from injury and everybody cheered him and gave him a big babyface pop and he turned heel in the first promo back. Like, they don't understand what they're doing. They shoot themselves in the fucking foot. Becky's heel run, whatever. We gave Bianca another crowning moment at WrestleMania. How many like she was already crowned as the new It Girl last year when she won the title. She had to get rechristened again. It's like Roman. They just keep rechristening him every so often with this Brock victory to remind people. It's like, I don't know. I haven't cared for this last Becky Lynch run, personally, but
I want to go back into the Braun Breaker thing again for 1 second,
yeah,
because
what's that about? And then we'll get into the
pull the
Backlash
trigger,
pay-per-view.
like if they're going to pull the trigger on this eventually, where he's the next top guy, which is very possible, he needs to be a fucking Steiner.
Yeah. No, I
For that
agree.
main event
That I
level
agree.
credibility. You know what I mean?
feel like WWE, first of all, they wanted a name that they could trademark, because I know there's some kind of, like, the guys started getting smart and trademarking their old names and stuff, even if they're not currently wrestling anymore. Like, there's still a lot of
Right. Well, they
equity
learned
behind the
after
name
the
of Rick and
Dudley
Scott
Boys
Steiner.
failed to do that.
Yeah, like the Dudley Boys had to go around and be they were the Deadly Brothers for a little while. Then they were just Brother Ray and Brother Devon. But so I think the bugaboo right now is that the name Steiner, trademark and copyright wise or whatever, is owned by Rick or Scott or both. And I think, because this is what WWE does, the Hall of Fame induction for the Steiners was a way to try and smooth things over with Scott, who's known to still dislike Triple H and all those guys to this very day because of how he was treated in 2001, 2002. This was a way of like a peace offering to them, which I think WWE assumes will grease the wheels for them to allow them to buy or license the Steiner name without too much cost or too much complication. Go, hey, we gave you the Legends deal, we gave you the Hall of Fame. Can we use we're gonna take the name Steiner, but we're gonna give it to your son and your nephew, and we're gonna change him into a Steiner. We're gonna make him world champion. If they pitch that to the Steiners, I have no doubt that they're gonna call their lawyer and sign the rights over the name Steiner immediately. But I think it's one of those things where the Steiners are holding on to it and WWE is holding off on it because, and I hope to God I'm right. I hope, because so far they've disappointed me with the way they handle people's names going up to the main roster. My hope is that Braun Breaker, at one point when they feel like dropping the title off of him, right, and that's the thing, they squashed it. You're right, Terry. So they squashed the beef, and that's all part of like, they're not dumb. They know that they had to get Scott on board for this all to work. So by getting Scott on board with this Hall of Fame induction and all of this, I think helps a lot. So my hope is, whenever they think Braun Breaker is going to go from NXT to the main roster, they write him off NXT, whatever. He gets in. Oh, he's injured and he's out for weeks, whatever. And fucking Royal Rumble, 3, 2, 1, and who is it? And the sirens, woo, the sirens play, and he has like Steinerized music, and they go, oh my God, it's Bronson Steiner, and like the whole crowd go like, and you see the graphic, because that for me will be the big thing. The Royal Rumble graphic that says entrant number whatever, Braun Steiner or Bronson Steiner,
or Rex
is going to be a
Steiner.
big fucking deal.
And okay, so here's the part of it that weirds me out, is that now, especially after the Steiner's Hall of Fame induction, is that they're completely acknowledging the fact that he's Rick's son and Scott's nephew.
Right. I mean, Rick was on TV, yeah.
Right, but unlike the whole Rocky Maivia thing, where that name made sense because he was taking Rocky from his father and Maivia from his grandfather, but where, yeah, and then add a little barking from Rick.
If you hear me,
Yeah, add a little Rick barking to
so
that.
happy if Braun Breaker came out First of all,
he's got to wear the headdress thing.
He's got to do two. He's got to have the amateur wrestling ear covers, and then over that, he's got to have the chain link helmet.
Oh
yes.
So when he takes it off, he's got his. So he takes his uncle's headdress off, and he's got his father's amateur wrestling headgear on. I think that would be like. The only other guy that wears wrestling headgear right now is Josh Alexander, the current Impact champion.
Yeah, but he looks like a goof.
He looks like a goof. Oh no!
He does.
Listen. Well, that's why nobody ever fucked with Rick Steiner. Like you could never say that. Like Rick Steiner, if you said that about his headpiece, like you look like a goof, he'd rip your friggin' ears off.
Yeah.
That's actually the reason why.
But to me, Rick never looked like a goof. He looked like a bad.
No, he looked legit in it, and I think again, I'm kind of joking, but I think Bronson Steiner would look, he'd look legit in the thing. It's one of those things that makes you look like a legit shooter.
Well, look, if you notice, his outfits have been old school Steiner Brothers outfits.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And he talks just like his uncle Scott.
It's
amazing,
scary.
and he's got very much like his. Stuff like his father as well. So he's like a perfect combination of both Steiner brothers. It's amazing.
And he really is, because those guys never wanted to be single stars as long as their other brother was wrestling. Scott turned down a main event run in WWF in like 1992. He turned down a singles run because him and his brother were still tagging together.
I mean, like going back, I would have even like turned both Steiners heel at the same time to join the NWO back in the day.
But see, it was a big deal for Steiner to turn on his brother. Like it was that had to happen to make it feel like a bigger deal. You know what I mean? If both
but then we ended up with Judy Bagwell as a tag team champion.
Listen, that never got his home run.
All right, WrestleMania Backlash review.
Woo! All right.
So, we do our pick 'em, right? So it looked like everyone got either 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, right? Or something like that. It was pretty fucking close. Those are the pay-per-views I'm not blown away over, because it was that predictable in the sense that you really kind of knew which way things were going to go. I do think some of the matches were great. I think Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, the match was fantastic.
Yeah, I gotta agree, and the main event I thought was awesome too.
Yeah,
as a match. Maybe
and those, I think,
story,
for me,
whatever, but the match itself was great.
Right, and those were the two. So those are my two picks that I think I messed up. Everything else, I clocked correctly. And again, I have justifications for them. I thought Cody was going to lose to Seth because they were setting up a third match. Silly me. He's going to win 2 in a row, and they're still going to set up the third fucking match anyway.
Duh!
And then, but again, I'm trying to think of this logically, like somebody who would actually write a wrestling show would do, instead of like,
well, that was your first mistake.
Right, that's my first mistake. And then, again, using the justification of, in every other wrestling promotion, including the WWF back in the day, if the heel world champion was in a non-title multi-man tag team match, his team fucking lost. The team would lose. One of the tag guys would take the fall, and the person that you were building up to challenge the champion would get the pin on the partner. So, for example, if you wanted to build up Drew to face Roman, like we've been talking, Drew should have claymored the shit out of Jimmy or Jay and pinned them, and then made it clear, I just pinned one of your boys, I'm coming for you next. And then you got a feud. Instead, it's the same Roman Reigns fluky win by the skin of my teeth. The dominant, here's the problem I have. Roman Reigns is the head of the table, the dominant guy, undefeated for 2 years, this, that, and the other thing. And then every match skates by the skin of his teeth. It's the same time when he was the underdog, but he won every fucking match. It's the same. Oh, how is he going to win this time? I don't know. The same way he's won every other time for the last 7 years. You just book him to fucking win, even when it doesn't make sense. This made no sense. To book match was fine. Match is good. Finish makes no sense. Because you fucking fucked 3 guys. You fucked RKO and Drew. They lost in the main event. That means all of them in the rankings, you go down the bottom of the list. You're no longer on the radar. So,
right, like, so I get what you're saying. Like, it would have made more sense for Drew and RK Bro to lose had the tag titles been, unified.
right.
And then the Usos won. That would have made more sense if that was the case, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that was now we're hearing, now that they did all this stuff and changed the match around, WWE apparently never had any intention of unifying the tag titles.
So now here's the thing, though, right? So I went on a rant last week because I was pissed off that they booked this whole fucking pay-per-view around the unification and then just dropped it, right? So now we're hearing reports that it was never in the plans. Why are we still teasing it now then on Raw?
I don't know.
Because you got the Profits and RK Bro talking about wanting to unify the titles. So what are we doing? Are we doing it? Is it in the cards? Is it not? But maybe stop promoting it and then doing nothing with it.
They didn't want to do it at Backlash and they want to do it at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam.
Or they had no intention, but because of the uproar in social media, maybe they're...
Right, maybe now they're trying to... But also, like, didn't they established Shinsuke Nakamura as like the contender and made it seem like he was going to be wrestling Roman at the pay-per-view and then just fucking did nothing with it. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of weirds. WWE fans are saying that the shows are better than ever and the matches are better than ever, and that's fine. The shit still doesn't make sense. Like, you can watch it and enjoy it on the face of it and go, wow, that match was fun. But then you think about it later and you're like, yeah, but then the finish kind of fucked somebody. Or like, this doesn't quite make sense. You know what I mean? It's like, they're not, people are acting like WWE's back. They're not all the way back yet. They still got some work to do. I mean, it has nothing to do with the performers. Because, how can you hate on them? They put on such hard work and they're super. Listen, I understand.
Comes down to the writing.
They're WWE superstars. They train very hard. They're in peak athletic condition. They have made it to the pinnacle of the sport by being on television for the world's largest company. I understand. They can go out there. Like, if you watch the Yankees, sometimes the players go out and they have a good game, and then fucking Aaron Boone comes out and changes pitchers or does something stupid, and then all of a sudden they lose, and it's on the manager. Or like, the coach calls the wrong play in a football game, and the quarterback gets sacked and fumbles, and the other team gets the ball. It's not the players' fault. The players, the wrestlers, have to do what the coach, Vince McMahon, or the writers tell them to do. And these guys are getting paid very well. They're good soldiers. Some of these guys have forsaken other companies and friendships, and Kevin Owens didn't go with his buddies. Cody Rhodes left his brother. He left a VP position to be paid very well to perform for this company. And they're going to do the job they're paid to do. But the writing is what's failing them.
And again, you make a good point with Roman, because, like, look, let's be honest. When Brock was going on this killer heel beast mode thing, how often did he cheat? Not very, if at all. Like, would it kill them to have Roman go over clean without anything?
And that's the problem I have.
Because he should be booked as that. Like, because he doesn't need, like, his cronies. And unfortunately, they're booking the Usos like cronies, instead of like credible people.
Right. It's a way that WWE books things. It's the way they've always booked things. They keep it very simple. The bad guys cheat. The good guys don't. There are times when, like, this is what bugs me. People will go, AEW didn't do a good enough job promoting this Owen Hart tournament. They didn't do any videos on it. They didn't have anybody talking about how much it meant to them. And then you go to the YouTube or you watch Dynamite, and there's a whole fucking promo with old New Japan footage of Owen wrestling. And you've got guys like Punk and Adam Cole and all these guys talking about how much Owen Hart meant to them. And it was a real segment that aired on real TV. And then you get a promo with a guy like Dax from FDR who says, I need to win this tournament. I love tag team wrestling. I love the Hart family. I respect Bret. I respect Owen. They're beating you over the head with this. And fans are so fucking dumb, they don't realize it. So WWE has dumbed this product down so people don't ask questions about things. The bad guys cheat. The good guys don't. And that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
it is so fucking true.
And they haven't progressed past Vince McMahon turning heel and becoming Mr. McMahon is the greatest thing that's ever happened to WWE, and the fucking worst. Because ever since then, it's bad guy, authority figure, general manager, owner, president, whatever the fuck, for the last 30 years. Why did we need Sonya Deville as a personality? I don't give a shit about Adam Pearce. None of these people have any real effect on the product anyway. They're just characters on the show. So, like, there are things that they do that are just stuck. And just look at all the heels. Every heel. Triple H had the sledgehammer. You'd get hit with the urn by the Undertaker or by Paul Bearer. Even Mr. Sacco was an illegal. That's a foreign object that he ended up starting to use. You know what I mean? Like, it's all very samey. Where if you go to like New Japan, for example, Okada's a babyface, but Okada, when he's facing a guy like Naito or like Ishii or Tanahashi, there are guys that will get cheered over Okada because Okada's won the title so long and held the title so long. They want to see this underdog guy win. They want to see Tana win because he's a legend. They want to see Naito win because that's his big rival. Ishii's never won the big one, so he's an underdog. Okada plays the heel in these matches. He wrestles a heel style and a heel piece, but he wins clean at the end. Why? Because he's your world champion and he's the best wrestler in your company. He's not the guy with the best manager. He's the best wrestler. He's not the guy with the best two guys standing outside the ring super kicking people. He's the best wrestler. And if Roman Reigns is the best wrestler on your roster, which by default he is, he shouldn't have to cheat Listen, I'm not saying he needs to win every match clean, but to low blow Brock Lesnar and like all this, it doesn't make any sense. If you're making the new king, he's got to kill the king. That's not killing the king. That's leaving a question mark for the next time that Brock Lesnar shows up. If you want to put this guy over, and that's the problem they've had, they've put him over at half measures and half degrees every time. They go, we got to have an out in case this didn't work. We have to have an out in case we need a rematch. Put somebody over fucking clean and have it mean something. Sorry, guys, I'm fucking fired up today.
I love it, but you're not wrong.
And again, this is nothing on the performers. These guys are going out there and killing themselves. The 300 nights a year, they're on the road killing themselves. And then could you imagine you go out there, you work a 20-something minute match, and you've got a nerd like me on the internet going, oh, I didn't like the finish. What are these guys fucking doing? And you feel like shit, even though it's not your fault. It's some asshole in Stanford who just graduated with a communications degree, who's never written anything in their lives, not even a wrestling fan. This is the big problem. They fire a guy like Freddie Prinze Jr., who's not only a big name Hollywood star, he loves professional wrestling, and they fucking got rid of him. Patrice O'Neal was a stand-up comedian, brilliant stand-up comedian, RIP, worked for WWE for like 2 months. Stephanie called him and fired him. He's like, oh, okay, and hung up. She called him back to say, no, you're really fired. Don't come back. She was expecting him to get mad because they take these people who love wrestling and love performing and love writing, and they fucking get rid of them. And they hire somebody who wrote for SpongeBob SquarePants or some fucking soap opera. Hire people who like wrestling. There are people all over the world in big positions who like wrestling. There's a billionaire who owned the fucking Jaguars in the NFL, who, guess what, started his own wrestling company because he loved wrestling. If you don't love wrestling, you shouldn't be in the fucking business.
But see, that's it's deliberate on Vince McMahon's part.
Right, because we're making movies, pal. We're not a wrestling. We're a TV program. We're a brand. We're a social media marketing company. They're everything but pro wrestling. But the base of it is Vincent Jesse McMahon the First's vision of Capital Wrestling Corporation. That's the foundation of this whole company. And they don't realize that as long as there's a ring with 4 posts and 3 rings, it's a fucking wrestling show, and you should treat it like that. If you want to do something else, get rid of the fucking wrestling ring and put out a stage and do something different. But until you do that, you have to realize that your product is pro wrestling, and the people forget outside fans. There's no such thing as an outside fan anymore for anything. The internet is way too open about all niches, anime and Marvel and nerd shit and video games and vintage vinyl and all, whatever your niche is. You think you're alone because there's nobody else in your town. There's 1,000 or 1,000,000 other people on the internet you can just find, and now you've got a group of fans. So you're not gonna get outside people. You might get a few, but like you're running a wrestling show. Do it for the fans of your wrestling show. That's I like how you put Vince is fired up in the fucking ticker on the bottom.
That's awesome.
Can't say I disagree with one fucking thing that you said.
But
so,
again, I get worked up like this because I love wrestling and I love the sport of professional wrestling, and I also love the spectacle of professional wrestling.
Hey, Vince, how much did you love Omos versus Bobby Lashley?
No, now I hate professional wrestling. As soon as I saw that match, I'm like, no, I hate professional wrestling again.
What a fucking disaster was that, right?
This poor, again, we're talking about Drew earlier. Poor fucking Bobby Lashley. He comes back in like 2017, 2018, says back then, I want to fight Brock Lesnar. I want to be world champion, all this stuff. They put him with Leo Rush and have him bend over and shake his ass. They bring out Max Caster and 2 other guys in drag to pretend to be his sisters. They do all this goofy bullshit.
Then the thing with Lana.
And, the Lana wedding, that disaster. They do all this stuff, and they finally get him to be champion, and then they fuck him again. They fucked this guy.
They finally did do something right, though. Edge versus AJ Styles.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm glad.
And the debut of Rhea Ripley joining Judgment Day.
And as soon as you saw the finish of that match, where if AJ won, Damian Priest was banned from ringside, you didn't know, maybe if you weren't paying attention, you didn't know it was Rhea Ripley. You should have had an inkling that with Damian Priest being banned from ringside, there was going to be a new member coming out. And yeah, I loved that because her entrance, she comes out, zipped up hoodie, sweatpants, all this stuff. She's so tall and broad that you didn't know if it was a man or a woman, and you didn't know who they were until off comes the deal, and it's her, and it makes too much sense for them not to do. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things where even if she
was perfect. Before
they even had they showed the purple lights in the background with her and Liv. Before that, we're like, Edge has this new thing. Rhea Ripley should be in it. It's the aesthetic, it's the feel, it's the music. They all have. It makes sense.
I also love the fact that like obviously the match and the hell outcome was awesome and everything. I just want to reflect on what Edge said on Raw, that Edge was basically the one that planted that thought in Rhea's mind. So like I love that they're going with that, the continuity and everything.
But they could see, that's the thing.
They're doing everything right with this one for a change.
Why can't they understand that continuity and things making sense one week to the next? I'm trying to be calm here and not yell because they're doing a good job with this, but they're not doing it with everything else. Why can't the logic that they're applying to this storyline apply to other storylines? This is great.
It's unfortunate that
baby steps, Vince, baby steps.
But it's unfortunate that we have this expectation that like something's going great for a bit, and then we just have this expectation that somehow, some way, they're gonna fuck it up.
They're fucking up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting. Even with the Cody thing, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, give it 6 months, guys. I have just with the care they've been showing the storyline, I think it's gonna go well for them.
This has been around for basically since Mania, since Damian, only for like a month, and it's already 1,000,000 times better than Retribution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So listen, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I want to talk about Flair Rousey. Obviously, Flair is going to be getting married, so she's going to be taking some time off. Congratulations to her and Andrade, which would then make sense as to why she dropped the title to Rousey. What'd you guys think of the match? I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's I don't want to say it was completely night and day from WrestleMania, but it was damn close to night and day from WrestleMania.
I do feel though still that should have been the fucking outcome at Mania to begin with, but
right.
Just
but they've cannibalized WrestleMania and the mystique of WrestleMania, not only by making it 2 nights and devaluing the idea of getting on the WrestleMania card. they've devalued WrestleMania and the mystique of WrestleMania by naming the pay-per-view WrestleMania Backlash.
Oh my God, I thought it was the only one that had a problem with that.
No, it's the dumbest, because here, the pay-per-view traditionally, I know they changed it around, but there was a chunk of time where traditionally after WrestleMania was a pay-per-view called Backlash.
Yep.
And everybody in the world who's past like third grade education and knows the word backlash
understood what it meant.
That it was implied that Backlash was a response to WrestleMania. We got it. It's a real. We got it immediately.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
This is what I'm saying about dumbing shit down.
Yeah,
they dumbed it down for like non-English speaking countries. WrestleMania Backlash. So they might not know what Backlash means, but they see the WrestleMania logo and they go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, it's redundant.
Right. No, it's very much so redundant. But and again, it's just another thing that kind of now there's another show called WrestleMania. Why? You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. I'm so glad you brought that up because that pissed me off too.
But Ronda Rousey, you know, again, they've kind of changed it up. So WrestleMania, the agent of that match was Pat Buck, and then he immediately quote unquote retired from being an agent, but then
went to AEW a week later.
Now he's on AEW TV every week breaking up a fight. That big shock of red hair coming out. You just see it from a mile away. But interesting. Molly Holly was recently hired by WWE to be an agent for matches. And Molly Holly was the agent for this match. So they had, not only did you have Ronda, who's an athlete and has wrestled, Charlotte, who's now had a long-ass career. You have Molly Holly, one of the best women's wrestlers they ever had on their roster.
100%.
Treated her like shit.
That explains,
she had to shave her head to get on a WrestleMania card.
Yeah. And
she offered it. They didn't even ask her. She said, "I will shave my head if you put me on this fucking show." So that makes a lot of sense, Eric. She's talented.
But it makes sense also because if you look at, let's be honest, the match, I'm pretty sure she wasn't the one that put together their match at WrestleMania.
No, that was Pat Buck. Yeah.
Right. So and not to shit on Pat Buck, I'm just saying though that this explains why the match at Backlash was better than their match at WrestleMania was.
Yeah, and I think, and not
Molly is like what Finlay was to the women's division and what Tyson Kidd is now to the women's division.
Yeah, because I think women's wrestling is a different animal than the men's wrestling. It just is. And you can be a good men's wrestler and just not have the perspective, or a good men's agent and not really have the perspective on women's wrestling. Finlay, working with those women all for so long, had a good perspective, but also he's a brain. I've talked to, he just knows. David Finlay knows wrestling inside and out. He's like a Regal. He's just a brain.
Here's okay.
And Molly is, like I said, so talented. It only makes sense that she should be doing this now at the end of her career.
I just thought of this. And then, like, Steve, since you brought up this match, where does Ronda go from here? Like, as far as like opponents and the way she's booked and shit.
That's a very good question.
Well, especially because Lacey Evans' profile has been moved from the SmackDown roster to the Raw roster.
Are they going to just catapult Lacey directly into the main event?
Well, now there's a rumor that after all these promos and I almost committed suicide. I was homeless. I was living in my car. I'm a single mother. They're going to turn her heel. This was all intended to turn out to be like a
That'd be so fucked up if they turn her heel this quickly.
Angle on it.
Right. It's almost like because she's a veteran, it's like a thank me for my service
like
kind of
pandering
thing.
And bullshit and
Well, because if you notice, people started picking up on it when the ring announcer, Aaliyah or whatever, goes, Lacey Evans requests that you show her the proper respect when she comes out. Wait a minute.
Oh, that's true.
And they had Michael Cole reiterate that a lot on SmackDown.
Right. So I feel like this is going to be one of those, yes, like you said, a Kurt Angle kind of, I'm an American hero. Because she's a veteran. She's a single mother. She survived personal trauma. Yeah, I just think it's so short-sighted. And again, it shoots her in the foot. It takes something that would have been unique about her and make people want to root for her. And she just goes back to the same heel routine she's been doing for the last couple of years.
Right. All the only difference is she drops the Southern Belle thing, but
exactly. The outfits are gone, and that was what made her stand out.
And then we don't know what's happening. Like if Bailey is going to come back, like,
What, we were talking about Alexa coming back, which is big news.
It's not if, it's when. I mean, she's definitely going to come back. It's just when the fuck is she going to come back?
So little we know about the situation. Is she still injured? Like Alexa, there was this speculation that Alexa was off because first it was an injury, then she was planning her wedding, this, that, and then she comes out on Twitter and says, "Guys, I've been healthy for months. They just haven't called me." Like she was being honest with the fans.
Same thing with Asuka.
Right. Asuka was the same thing. Oh, is she injured? No, she's healthy. They just didn't call her. So to think that Bailey has been sitting around for 18 months and they haven't fucking done anything with her, she's got to come back, right? She's got to. If she comes back, she's Ronda's opponent. She's Bianca's opponent. She's anybody's fucking opponent because she's one of those main event pieces, one of the 4 original wrestling horsewomen, not the MMA horsewomen, the wrestling NXT horsewomen, who was a pillar, to use a pillar of the division.
But here's the thing, though. Is it a detriment, though, to put Bailey right in that main event spot, like, immediately? Wouldn't you want to, like, kind of build it up so, like, maybe she wins the Rumble and goes to Mania?
Sure, she doesn't have to be thrust right into a number 1 contender spot. But what I'm saying is when she gets back on TV, she's going to be featured as a big deal. She's not going to be chasing around the 24/7 title or whatever the fuck else the women are doing. She's going to be part of the main storyline. So she might have to build her way up.
Yeah, we're not going to be looking at a Bailey divorce angle.
Yeah, it's not going to be Dana Brooke or Tamina, Yeah. And on that note, it's the top of the hour, folks.
It is the top of the hour. You already got our thoughts on the Bloodline and Drew McIntyre RKO Bro match earlier in the night. Madcap Moss defeated Happy Corbin in a Who Gives a Shit match. That's my favorite stipulation, is the Who Gives a Shit match.
There's always one.
There is always one. This was the you have sometimes 9 minutes to go to the bathroom before the Roman Reigns match. So that's it for that. And again, if you just want to hear our opinions, or at least my opinion on that fucking RK Bro match, again, very well wrestled. Just questionable finish, which is usually my bugaboo with a lot of this programming, is just questionable finishes and where they lead to. But that's about it, folks. WrestleMania Backlash was Sunday. Raw was in Hartford this past Monday or yesterday. I did not go, but
Steve's alma mater.
Yeah, my alma mater.
Yeah, that's
somehow we figured out we actually might have overlapped 1 year and not known each other because I was a freshman and he was a senior, which is really odd to think that we both went to the same school at the same time, didn't know each other, and then met each other years later. But yeah, we're at the top of the hour. That's about it. We'll talk all things Raw, SmackDown, AEW, etc. next week. Some interesting stuff did crop up in the interim today, like Kota Ibushi talking about accusing New Japan of some shady business practices and trying to push people to come back from injury earlier than they should be, and if they're not medically cleared. But there's not...
Are they being accused of a Lucha Underground kind of thing?
Like Kota Ibushi saying that he wasn't ready to go, and they announced him as wrestling a match in like 3 weeks, and he had to go tell management like, "Hey, I'm legally like my doctor's not clearing me," and they had to like go backtrack. So anyway, there's a lot of moving parts with that because everything that's coming out is in Japanese, which then has to be translated to English, and you need somebody who's really good with the translate. You can't just throw it into Google Translate. You need like somebody who's a native speaker of both languages to translate the nuances of Japanese into English, because there's a lot of nuance in that language that we don't necessarily understand as an English speaker. So the story is still developing. I just wanted to bring it up in case people are wondering about it, but nothing is clear enough for us to have a segment on it. And because I'm the de facto New Japan guy, I'd be the guy talking about it. And we just don't have the details. But that is something that's kind of in the pipeline. If you hear more about it this week, it'll develop. We'll talk about it next week. We got fucking AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view coming up soon. We got a Forbidden Door pay-per-view. We got WWE's Money in the Bank. We've got all kinds of stuff coming up in the pipeline for future wrestling shows. It never stops. We literally every week have hours and hours of new stuff to talk about. So we'll be back Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on Eastern Time. We live stream all over the internet. We live stream on Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Most of our social media accounts are at Tag Me a Date. That's Tag Me a Date with no spaces. It's all one word, at Tag Me a Date. You can find that at Tag Me a Date on Facebook. You can find it on Twitter and Periscope. You can find it on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. You can find Tag Me a Date on YouTube. If you type Tag Me a Date into the search bar, you'll find our channel. Hit subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications when we upload a video or when we go live. If you are a Twitch homie or a Twitch watcher, go to twitch.tv/war report. And again, that's all one word, no spaces, war report. And you can friend us or favorite us on there. There is, in order to become what they call a Twitch partner, you have to hit a certain number of metrics, a number of shows listened, a number of people that favorite or like your page. So any kind of social media engagement helps us out to, kind of bump us up in the notoriety and queue there and the more you share it and the more you like it, the more it kind of shows up in the algorithm for other people who like wrestling. If you prefer audio versions of the podcast rather than watching the video streams or pulling up the video streams on our various Facebook pages or YouTube pages, etc., you can absolutely go to your favorite podcast app of choice, such as Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. All you have to do is search for The War Report or tag me a date, and it should come up. If you search for The War Report, there are, in fact, 2 War Report wrestling podcasts. Weird, I know. There's another one that's a little newer than us, but you'll know it's us because the graphic, when you tap on or you click on the show page for the podcast, you will see The War Report with the tag me a date name or logo somewhere on the graphic, and you'll know that it's us, and it'll also be in the description. So all you have to do is hit subscribe there. And within an hour of the show going off the air, so between 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern time on a Tuesday, we will take that live stream. Ryan, who get well soon, Ryan, he was feeling a little crappy today. So Ryan will pull that audio and put it up on the podcast apps in just a little while. So you won't actually miss anything. It's not like it comes out the next day or 2 days and then like the information we give you is out of date. We try and keep things up to date and fresh and live as possible as we go and broadcast live on a Tuesday night. Speaking of which, we're at the top of the hour. It's our time to go, and we will be back next week, 6 p.m. on Eastern time, all over the internet. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Periscope are all of our live stream destinations. And we'll be back 6 p.m. on Eastern time on Tuesday evening for another edition of the War Report Pro Wrestling Podcast, brought to you by Tag Me a Date. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Have a good one.